Hello guys, I hope you're well. Today on Prac 2. In Prac 1, I took you to the greenhouses, and the main focus of that practical was the climate control inside the greenhouse. And you'll remember we highlighted that various climatic parameters can actually be controlled inside the greenhouse. However, greenhouses are quite very expensive. Um, a 30 by 30 greenhouse can easily cost above 80,000 rands. So that's quite very expensive. Um, but what I want to talk about today, or what our practical is about today, is based on lecture 10, the shade houses. The shade houses. And this is an example of what a shade house looks like. And you'll notice that unlike a greenhouse with sophisticated temperature control, relative humidity control instruments, you find none of those here. It's just a shade net, but this shade net offers many benefits for the crops growing inside here. And you remember we indicated that some crops require low light intensity, and for most crops growing here, you'll find that actually that is their requirement. But that's not only that. Some crops require cooler temperature. So if your region has very high temperatures, but you cannot afford the greenhouse, or rather the temperature controlled greenhouse, you can certainly go for shade nets, because it's going to give you some very good benefits that are actually offered by the sophisticated greenhouse um, instruments, such as temperature control, the wet wall, those exhaust fans, and the like. All right. And there's a lot of research, as I indicated during our lecture. There's a lot of research which has been published highlighting that fact. You will grow crops outside, or rather in the open field, and put some crops inside the shade net. You'll find that they will do extremely well because of the benefits associated with shade nets. Okay. Now, depending really on the material, remember we indicated that you can use a white material, you can use a black shade net. There is also blue, green, there is also red, and all those colors, they will offer various benefits. They will allow certain amount of radiation to come inside the structure. The temperatures are certainly going to be different. For instance, if you're using a black cover, the temperatures inside the structure are likely going to be very high compared to if you're using a what ground cover. In terms of the attributes, you really have to be choosy. You'll have to consider how the material is actually made. All right. In fact, even the spaces, you'll see here, there are small spaces inside. There are small spaces in this material, and that helps in allowing a certain amount of air or wind to come inside the structure. Remember, we emphasized the importance of CO2. All right. So those spaces don't have to be too small. If they are too small, you might have some issues as well. So you also have to look at how the material is actually made. And if you go again to the literature, you'll find that different types of materials are actually used to make shade nets. And those materials have a significant effect depending on the material that they have used. It will have a significant effect on the climatic conditions inside the structure. All right, so that is very important. Okay. um Inside here, you can also use drip irrigation as you'll normally use it in a greenhouse. For instance, here they've used drip irrigation. These are drippers. Can see the piping. It's well done, and the plants are growing very well. There are also sprinklers. And again, going back to I think it's lecture 11, where we spoke about irrigation and sprinklers. The type of irrigation used here will depend on the crops that you're actually growing. All right. Some crops are quite very sensitive. They can easily develop diseases if sprinklers are used. For some crops, you'll find that that's not a problem. All right. So you have to be very wise, as we highlighted in the lecture, when you're choosing the irrigation system. All right. That is very important. This is a very good structure. It's well maintained. I also want to comment about the structural framework. Here, steel has been used. All right. It's been used. Okay. But steel, as we indicated in one of our lectures, steel is very expensive. Luckily, with shade houses, you can use wood material. So if you want to ensure that your structure stays for a long time without needing any repairs, you can use wood material, but that wood has to be treated. Otherwise, you'll have to change that wood every now and then. So just get treated wood and put this structure. You'll get very good benefits. The vegetables here will do well. Even tomatoes will do well. But obviously, that depends on where your structure is. All right. Otherwise, it will be pointless to have a shade net, or to find that even the natural light intensity environment is quite very low. All right. So you only use shade nets after you have analyzed the climatic conditions of your chosen environment. If the temperatures are too high, but you cannot afford to use the sophisticated greenhouses with climate control, certainly you can use a shade net for your production, and you'll get very good harvests with good quality. Shade nets, importantly, also assist in reducing the amount of insects that can actually come to your plants. All right, and that is very important. Importantly, it is critical to always ensure that this is well maintained. Otherwise, you're not going to get the benefits offered by the shade net. So if there are any holes in the net, those must be sealed as soon as possible. You can see there's a hole there that has to be fixed. If you look here again, it's a bit damaged here. This has to be fixed. Otherwise, you may not get the maximum benefits associated with this structure.